Central Georgia, happy Friday. It's meteorologist Ansley Parker. I'm in for meteorologist Alex Pry this morning, and we're going to take a look at the extended weekend forecast as we normally do on Fridays. Just to give you something to look forward to, there is really not a lot of rain chances in the upcoming weekend. So we're going to be talking mostly about temperatures and just kind of about the trend that we'll be under for the next couple of days and into the upcoming week. And overall, rain chances continue to be low. And that is kind of the case this morning as we look out on the sky cams as well. If you take a look at all four this morning, Macon, Warner Robins, down there in Perry, and then in Dublin as well, it's a really nice scene to kick off Friday. So, you know, Friday's kind of part of the weekend. To kick off our start of the weekend, things are looking great outside. It was a cool start to the morning, but it's going to lead into what will eventually be a very warm afternoon. So if you can remember the weather from the past couple of days, I think you've got the idea for the next few days as well. It's not too many changes on the way, and it should be something that's fairly familiar to you as we climb towards the weekend. So again, we're going to take a closer look at all of what you can expect this weekend here in just a few minutes, but let's start by setting the stage for this weather pattern that we have here by talking about current conditions. So right now, the numbers are mainly in the low to maybe mid 70s across the area. So this is around 10:30 this morning. This is different than what we saw early this morning. I think the low temperatures dropped down into the upper 50s for most. A few hung on to the low 60s. So it was that another cool start to the morning, kind of a fall-like feel when you stepped out your door early this morning. But then as soon as the sun was up, the numbers started to climb pretty quickly. So they won't get too bad today, but definitely warmer than we were in the early morning. What you need to know is that the flow is still coming from the northeast, however. So despite the warm temperatures, as long as we keep getting these wind arrows coming in from the northeast, we're going to keep having this reinforcement of drier air building into our area. So we still have that today. And in fact, yesterday, the breeze was probably pretty noticeable. We had some pretty good wind gusts yesterday. I think the breeze will be less noticeable today, but again, we still have that flow coming in regardless of if you feel the breeze or not. So the reinforcement of dry air is still there. So we still have mainly not bad air out there. You can see there's a little pocket of moisture over here towards Johnson County. It's not terrible, however, and it's probably something that will fluctuate as we head throughout the day today. We're all sitting pretty much in the not bad category. There's pockets that are creeping closer to the dry category over there towards Upson County. Dew points in the low 60s, getting closer to kind of what we would consider dry here. Basically, to give you perspective on this map, if it's been a while since you've had a reminder, the higher this number gets, the more muggy it is. The lower this number gets, the drier the air is. So we'll kind of fluctuate all day, just somewhere in that not bad category, sometimes closer to muggy, sometimes closer to dry. Overall, the humidity just won't play a huge role in the forecast today or into the upcoming weekend either. So because of the dry air that we have, you know, you kind of need moisture in the air to have rain. So the satellite and radar is quiet thanks to all the dry air in our area. And I think the satellite and radar is going to be having a little vacation here because it's not going to be picking up on much as we head into the next couple of days. We are sitting under a very quiet weather pattern. There's not going to be a lot heading our direction. It's not even clear what's going to be the next major rainmaker on the forecast. So as we kind of look towards the long range, there's not even necessarily anything that looks like it could be our next big weather maker. So if we kind of take this out big picture, you can see it's not just us who's quiet. It's a lot of the southeast. Obviously, there was a little shower over there in western Alabama earlier this morning. But other than that, the southeast is quiet except for what you can see down towards the south. Now, there is still a stationary boundary hanging out here in northern Florida. That's what's causing the cloud cover and a couple of showers off towards the coast. But elsewhere, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, everybody is quiet today. And the high pressure system over this region is the dominating factor for the forecast over the next couple of days. Despite that, there is still a 10% chance of rain on the 7-day for the day today. I don't think it's really going to be a great chance. It covers the bases for what you see the future view trying to populate right there. Maybe a brief sprinkle, if anything. To give you some perspective, yesterday I was out and about running errands and I noticed a cloud, just one cloud, that looked like it was getting a little dark, maybe like it could drop a little bit of a brief shower. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. You may notice one cloud out in the distance that looks like it has the potential to create a shower, and I think that's the most we're talking about for rain for the day today. So that will be all the way through this evening. Football Friday night looks good, which we'll talk more about here in just a second, but that leads us into an even clearer weekend. I've dropped the rain chances entirely for Saturday and for Sunday. You can see playing the future view out all the way throughout the day on Saturday. there's nothing that even tries to show up. So I think it'll be a completely dry Saturday for everybody. And then I think we're going to do a completely dry Sunday as well. If you were looking for the weekend to get outside, this is the weekend to do it. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. We'll have plenty of sunny skies. It'll be warm in the afternoons, cool in the mornings and at night, and it'll just be dry so you can enjoy outdoor time without the threat of rain. Again, that's Saturday and Sunday, and then I think we kick off the upcoming work week a lot like that as well. So let's talk a little bit more about football Friday night. That is tonight. I think that things are going to be really good. Again, there's that 10% chance of rain on there for maybe a brief sprinkle. Overall, I've just kind of thrown the rain chances off for football Friday night because I think as we creep towards tailgate time, any of those rain chances will kind of drop off. Not only that, but I don't think anything that we could see will get in the rain or in the way of any of these games progressing. It should be good to go for kickoff. It'll be the warmest. That's when the temperatures will still be in the mid to upper 80s. So feeling warm out there for sure. I mean, we're close to 90 degrees. It'll be a hot afternoon, but then by kickoff, things are starting to wind down. And as we close out the game, you actually may want to have a light jacket on you because closing out the game, things are going to be a little bit chillier. Chilly, I say relatively. I know our morning anchor, Connor Hendricks, was making fun of me the other day because I always consider you need a jacket once the temperature drops below 80, but if you're not that way, then you may not need one. Overall, it's just going to be cooler in the evening than the afternoon for football Friday night, but clear skies should make for great football weather. That's not the only games that we have going on. Of course, that's for Friday night. As we head into Saturday, the Mercer Bears are taking on Wofford, and they will be playing here at home. Similar conditions expected for them. It's going to be a pretty warm afternoon once again today. In fact, the numbers you see here, I wouldn't be super surprised if they might tick up a degree or two as we head throughout the day today, into the evening and into tomorrow. What was happening this morning was a lot of the models were going really low with some of these numbers. We've had 90s on the 7-day over the past couple of days. I dipped them down just a few degrees. If you see them return, don't be surprised. Sometimes the models fluctuate up and down, trying to get a hold on what's going on with the weather pattern. Right now we're in a dip, so I kind of went with some lower trends here for the weekend. Either way, I just want you to think it'll be pretty warm in the afternoon. So if you're heading out to Mercer, it'll be pretty warm around tailgate time, similar to football Friday night. By the time we're at kickoff, things will be cooling off, and then by the time we're at the end of the game, that's when you may want a sweatshirt or a jacket because I think it'll be a little bit chilly by then. So really great weather for the weekend. I think we've established that. But as we head into the upcoming work week, are there any real changes on the horizon? The answer to that, in short, is kind of no. As we kind of go into Monday and Tuesday, I still think we're going to have basically a 0% chance of rain. I've paused it here on the midweek because there's potentially some changes on the way. I still don't think they're going to be major changes, but it may be a little bit of a change in how things feel outside. So this is Wednesday. You can see the Euro model here in blue trying to throw just some paint splatters in our direction. The reason I've even paused it here is because this kind of emphasizes the idea that there may be some increased moisture by the time we get to Wednesday. So as opposed to our flow coming out of the northeast, reinforcing the drier air, we might see some of that flow starting to come from the south. And that would bring a little more moisture, basically just a little more mugginess to our air. With that, we potentially could support the chance for slightly better chance at seeing maybe 1 or 2 isolated showers. It's by no means a major rain chance. By no means am I even bumping it above 10%, but I threw that 10% back on there for Wednesday into the second half of the week because I anticipate there could be a little more mugginess in our air. That just shows you how little rain chances we have over the next week because I'm grasping at straws here trying to think, okay, if we have enough moisture to maybe support 1 or 2 showers in the area, that may increase our rain chance from 0 to 10. Overall, it's still not very impressive. I wouldn't count on rain in the second half of the work week. It still looks very dry, and it looks like we get another push of dry air sometime maybe Thursday or Friday. So overall, the window's brief, and I would still consider it to be a very low chance of rain. Overall, what you needed to take for the weekend and the upcoming week, if you got outdoor plants, you need to water your lawn, don't count on rain. Just go ahead and do those things because rain, it's going to be pretty hard to find through the weekend and into the upcoming work week. Now, because of this, we haven't actually had rain in a while. Last week, we were in a pretty dry week as well. This past week, we haven't really seen rain. So we have found ourselves creeping towards the abnormally dry category on the drought monitor. Now you'll remember these update every Tuesday. So this is this Tuesday's edition of the drought monitor. It just kind of creeps Upson County, parts of Lamar and Taylor counties into the abnormally dry category. So not even technically drought yet, but starting to creep the way towards hey, we could use some rain. So as much as the weekend will be great and we can enjoy outdoor time without the threat of rain, we will be eventually making our way towards probably needing to see something. This, I will say, is not super abnormal for fall. We tend to see these big fronts that dry the air out for a little bit of time, but if we could find rain in the next week, if we see some changes in the atmosphere, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. Not major cause for concern, just kind of telling you where we stand in terms of rainfall. So I talked a little bit more about the chance for some mugginess to creep back into our area in the middle of the week. The good news is through the weekend and to kick off the upcoming work week, the mugginess will not be back. We'll be teetering between the dry to not bad category over the next couple of days. So you don't need to worry about the heat index or anything like that as we head into the afternoons. The temperatures will be warm, but you don't really need to factor in the humidity. I think the humidity will still relatively be low, especially for where we could be sitting. We're still kind of making our way towards the start of fall. And if you're a Georgia native, you know it can get really muggy during this time of year still. So lack of humidity is making what we saw yesterday, 87 degrees, not so bad. And I'll remind you, 89 is the average for this time of year. So 87, it's again, just really not that bad. We saw 87 yesterday. I think we're going to do a similar thing today. As we climb throughout the afternoon, we are going to top out, and I guess my pause points did not take here. But the general trend for what you needed to take from this map, the good news is I don't really need to pause. All you really need to know is that for every day heading into the weekend and to kick off the upcoming work week is that the overnight lows will still get cold. So we'll still drop down into the mid to upper 50s in some spots, maybe even low 50s in a couple of the spots that really cool down and have a lot of dry air in their area. And then the upper 60s or the low 60s for areas that are a little bit warmer. So overnights will still be cool. You can hang on to that. You can take your coffee out on the porch in the morning and enjoy kind of the fall-like air that greets us in the mornings and late at night. That will still be there through the 7-day forecast. The afternoons will continue to be warm. We're going to climb into the mid to upper 80s today and kind of sit there through the weekend. So it'll be warm afternoons. The way I've been saying it, grab a jacket in the morning, but definitely something that you can take off by the afternoon because you will get warm. But we were kind of making a general trend towards 90 degrees. Again, today the models kind of worked that back down to upper 80s. Either way, we're going to kind of settle out in the upper 80s, maybe in the low 90s, and then we just don't really move as we head into the upcoming work week as well. So just not a lot of changes on the horizon, which again is why I emphasized we didn't actually necessarily need to pause here on the future view temperatures. I think this map does a good job of showing it. We're generally just going to be somewhere near where we should be for this time of year over the next week. It's going to be a little warm. You'll probably want it to feel a little bit cooler for September. You're starting to get that fall-like bug. We just have to make it through temperatures that are a little bit warmer for a little bit longer. We're not quite there just yet, but to show you some perspective, again, our average high temperature for this time of year is 89 degrees. We're trending right around average as we head throughout the week or so, maybe a degree or two above, but the worst of it is further out towards the west. The true heat dome of this whole high pressure system is out mainly over in Texas, so we're not really dealing with that, which I think many of you will be grateful for. So with all of that central Georgia weather wrapped up, you may remember we did hit the peak of hurricane season just 2 days ago. Today is September 12th. The peak of hurricane season occurs on September 10th. Now, on that date, we weren't really watching any area of potential tropical development, but we are now. Now, as of a couple days ago, we started watching this tropical wave roll off of the western coast of Africa, is now sitting in the tropical Atlantic, and it's producing an area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. This is terminology that you probably hear us use a lot. Once one of these pieces of energy essentially kind of rolls off of the western coast of Africa, it starts to create its own showers and thunderstorms. The reason that that is important is because from that area, it can form a low pressure system. And once it can kind of try to get some central circulation with its own showers and thunderstorms, that's when we start to see something like a tropical system begin to develop. So this is usually the flag. The National Hurricane Center always watches these tropical waves because they have the potential to produce enough energy to create their own system. So they were already watching this. It had low chances of development with initial watching, but now it's doing the shower and thunderstorm thing. So now it's producing its own area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. So disorganized means it's really not come together too much, but it's still something that we're going to want to pay attention to. So I think that's kind of the perfect way to summarize why we're in the orange category here. That's medium chances of development. It's showing some signs of showers and thunderstorms, but it's not necessarily showing tropical characteristics, at least at the moment. So it's something that the National Hurricane Center will keep their eye on, especially as it heads further towards the west into that big orange region that they have outlined there. That is actually part of the main development region of the tropical Atlantic. And when we're around the peak time of the season, that's when the sea surface temperatures are at their peak heating. Saharan dust is at its lowest. It just basically means that that environment could be really favorable for it for development, but it's going to take a while for it to get there. You'll notice here as we kind of take a look at the actual percentages, it's got a 0% chance of development over the next 2 days. So don't expect to hear this thing becoming our next named system by the end of the weekend. We probably won't see the system become anything by the end of the weekend. It's really going to be something we'll have to watch in the upcoming week as it slowly drifts its way towards the west, maybe northwest. It's got 40% chance of development over the next 7 days. We're talking about maybe seeing a tropical depression storm by sometime in the mid to maybe later week next week. Overall, it still has low chances. I think it's just something that we got to pay attention to heading into the upcoming week. It's not unlikely that we could see this turn into some sort of tropical system, but its path, its strength, anything beyond what we know right now has a lot of uncertainty, and we'll just have to kind of see what this does over the next week. To give you some perspective, again, we talked about this, but the peak of hurricane season did occur on September 10th, and that is when we typically see the highest frequency of activity in terms of tropical systems, so tropical storms and hurricanes. We actually were quiet at the peak of the season this year, and if that seems abnormal, it's actually not super crazy. So if we take a look back on the 2024 season, we had a very quiet period heading into the peak of the season last year as well. From August 12th until September 9th, the day before the peak of hurricane season, we had the least active tropical period in the Atlantic in 56 years. So we hadn't seen anything form since Hurricane Ernesto, and then Hurricane Francine formed on September 9th. To give you some perspective, we're a little ahead of the game if you think about it, where we are. We've had 6 named storms, which is where we were heading into the peak of the season in 2024, but we've already had Tropical Storm Ferdinand, so that occurred a lot earlier than the F named storm last year. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Then after the peak of the season, we ended up with 2 more named storms after Francine. So it ended up being really active after we hit the peak, despite being quiet as we entered into the peak. So if we kind of take a look at basically everything I just said, summed up a little more simply, we had 6 named storms last year before the peak of the season, and then 12 more named storms occurred after the peak of the season. To tell you where we stand this year, in a similar place. We've already had 6 named storms. We're forecasted to have between 7 to 12 named storms still during the rest of the season. So I know it's unfortunate. I don't say any of this to instill fear in you in any way, shape, or form. I just tell you this to say, if you hear an uptick in activity as we head into the next couple of weeks and into the remaining end of hurricane season, it's not going to be something abnormal or something that we haven't seen before. We're generally expecting to see an increase in activity as we head into the rest of the month and into the rest of the season. Unfortunately, as much as I would like it not to be this way, hurricane season still goes for another 2.5 months. So we still have to make our way towards the end of it. I just want you to kind of be aware that if you hear a little bit more about the tropics in the upcoming weeks, it's something that we are prepared for. So with that being said, in the tropics, let's kind of summarize everything on your 7-day forecast. The good news is that will be a pretty simple job, because if you look at any of these days, you'll kind of get an idea of what the next one will be like. The high temperatures don't fluctuate much. We teeter between the mid to upper 80s, maybe 90s will be back on there as we head into the weekend, just kind of depending on how the models start to trend for Saturday and Sunday. All you need to know, the afternoons are going to be warm, the mornings are going to be cool. I've been throwing a jacket in my car just in case I'm out later than I expected and it gets a little bit chilly. I recommend maybe doing the same if you're somebody who runs cold like myself. The only other thing you really need to know is that there's basically no rain chances. The weekend is going to be great as we climb into the work week. I've kept the rain chance at 0 until we hit Tuesday, where I think we could see a little more moisture to support maybe 1 or 2 of those brief isolated sprinkles at best. Don't take any of the rest of the week as a widespread rain chance. We will be lucky to see any sort of rain in our whole area as we head throughout the entire 7-day forecast. So beyond this, we'll cross our fingers. We'll see if we got another rainmaker heading our direction, but it looks like we got a pretty dry weekend and a dry work week ahead of us. So while it's here, let's just take advantage of it. Enjoy outdoor time today. I know we have so much events and activities going on across Central Georgia into Saturday. So please take advantage of those. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, and not too many changes are on the horizon for the upcoming work week either. So enjoy the beautiful weather while it's here. Enjoy the fall-like mornings and enjoy the warm afternoons. I love this kind of forecast because I think it has a little bit of something for everybody, the warm weather lovers and the cool weather lovers. Thank you so much for joining me for this extended look at your weekend forecast. Of course, me and meteorologist David Guerrero will be here all weekend with a look at the weather and what you can expect. Of course, we'll see you back with Alex Pry on Monday morning right here at 10:30. Have a great weekend.